Next stop in the life of Steve. We've got the midlife years. Well, everyone, thank you so much for being here today. It's an honor to be able to stand up here and have the opportunity to speak to everyone and introduce some very special people coming up. I have a gentleman by the name of Phil Mahoney, who was a lifelong friend and business partner of my dad. We have known Phil since, I think I watched you play football at Stanford with John Elway. But my dad hired him straight out of college, and they've just had a wonderful relationship ever since, the Moulds and the Mahoney families. Much like the Moulds and the Watts families, following Phil will be Dick Watts, who met my dad much in the same way that many men midlife meet, through their kids. And Dick and my dad and CB and my mom had just decades of rich life experiences together in their travels, cultural experiences, and many adventures. But obviously adventure's been quite a theme today. And my dad was about a lot of things. He was about, always doing what's right and always helping others less fortunate than you, and really he was, in my opinion, mostly about service and what he chose to do for his family, his people, his community, and everyone involved. But he was certainly a man of adventure, and I wanted just to share some thoughts, some stories about when I was young. I've gone on a number of adventures with my dad, and we've had some great ones. One-on-one, we've had some family adventures. We've had adventures with friends. There was the one that Gary talked about where I got rained on in the middle of the night. But as you know, my dad, he felt that adventure was the key ingredient to a rich life. Adventure and travel and culture and profession. And it was just something that was important to him. But it was also a tool for parenting for him. And he was really, really, it was important to him to instill that kind of sense of exploration, discovery, and accomplishment in me, because he felt that adventure and completing what you set out to do instilled in young people that sense of pride of accomplishing something truly unique. And that was big for him because it was something that drove him to do so many things in life, and he wanted us to have that same advantage and that same sense of self. So I will just provide one quick story and then turn it over to Phil and Dick. But I'll talk about an adventure that I had early in life, and we'll do a big rewind. We won't talk about the Honduras trips, which were great, and we won't even talk about the Boundary Waters trip, where he somehow convinced me to go there when I was 15 and spend a week over my Christmas break in negative 4-degree temperature camping outside. No, I will go back to a much quieter adventure, and this was just when I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, and it was just a normal weekend on Shawnee Pass in Portola Valley, and we didn't have much on the calendar that day, so Dad said, "Hey, Reed, what do you think? Should we go hike Windy Hill?" I said, "Yeah, let's go for it." And so we just set out from the house. It's probably a 2-hour hike to get to the summit, and we walked up like so many other folks do, and got to the top, and felt pretty good about it. I was taking a look at the trail we just covered, and thinking about the way down, and getting home in time for lunch. And I looked back to my dad and said, "Hey, you ready to go?" And I'm like, "Dad, you're looking the wrong way. Should be looking that way." He's looking, to the west. I'm like, "What's going on?" "Okay, it's a beautiful view, Pacific Ocean. I get it. That's great. Let's go get some lunch." And he said, "Hey, Reed, have I ever told you about orienteering?" I'm like, orienteering? No, I'm 12. And he says, well, basically, it's the navigational sport of going from point A to point B, but, without a trail. And I said, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. I like that. He said, yeah, well, how hungry are you? And I said, no, I could probably, stand to go a little bit longer. He's like, well, from here to the coast, there's no trail. So you want to try it, this thing called orienteering? I said, yeah, let's go. So we just start bounding down the west side of Windy Hill, and we're just going. And, this man just opened up this huge new boundary for me. He lifted the boundary, drew the curtains back, and said, hey, we don't need to follow the trails here. Let's just go that way, and let's just see what happens. And so we went for it. I probably should have asked some questions before we set out on that, like how far is it actually from the Windy Hill summit to the coast? If you measure it from the Shawnee Pass, it's 18 miles hiking. I didn't ask that question, nor did I ask exactly what he meant by late lunch. We went for it, and I was pretty amazed. I was agog. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is an adventure. And so we got about down to Highway 84. We did a bunch of skipped a number of fences, but then we finally caught up with 84, walking through La Honda, going all the way there. I'm like, wow, this is a lot of forest land. And then we finally get to the clearing, and at that point, it's probably 15 miles in. We're just getting out, and I'm like, Dad, I am done. I can't make it, man. This is brutal. I don't know how I'm going to get the last 3 miles here. And he said, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to set the pace, and you can keep up with me, and you can just stay abreast of me, or you know the way. You can just go at your own speed, and you can get there. And at that point, I was like, well, I've never had this offer before. I'm going to go at my own pace. Thank you very much. And yeah, I guess I'll see you I'll see you there. And in the back of his mind, of course, he's saying, I got to get Mom over here. Stat. This guy's going to be a basket case in no time at all. And so he's like hauling off to the nearest phone to make a call to get her to drive over and pick him up. But as I saw my dad go out of the frame, just, down the bend, it's dawning on me. I'm like, okay, he is setting the pace. And of course, lo and behold, a couple miles down the road, I found him at the San Gregorio General Store waiting for me. Mom was there too. She made it. And I had ended up getting there myself. And we had a great late lunch that day. But I tell you, my dad, he definitely had the recipe for a good adventure. And it really had, a couple of key ingredients, and that was just, picking a great journey, then going a little farther. Trails are optional. Add a little magic in there, and that's your adventure right there. And for me, from my standpoint as this young boy who just went on this really great first adventure, I realized what my relationship was, or with my dad, or rather what his relationship with me was, and that was, I'm going to set the pace for you in life. You can keep up with me, or you can go at your own pace, but I'm going to give you space to get there how you want to go, how you want to get there. But at the end of the day, you better be damn sure that I'm going to give you the satisfaction of making it to the end of that adventure so that you can have that same pride that I felt by completing mine. And, we did it. So I just wanted to raise a glass to my dad. As a person that was the beginning and end of so many of our adventures, and just a man that we'll all miss dearly. To Dad, to Steve. Okay, well, Phil, I think it's your turn. So come on and take the stage.
Yeah. So that's quintessential tough act to follow there. But Steve is multifaceted, to say the least. So I wanted to share some of my thoughts on my older brother, Steve, who hired me at the ripe age of about 20 when no one else would. And I saw Jeff Black, a mutual friend and great wine friend of Steve and mine, who was at Grove and Ellis in those days. And I remember them saying, we think you'll do okay, but not with us. You're too young. So Steve offered me a job when no one would, and he had one question in the sales interview process, which was, have you ever sold anything? And I said, damn, I wasn't ready for that. I said, yeah, I sold raffle tickets. And he slams the desk. God damn it, that's great. How many did you sell? I go, Steve, I was a junior in high school, and I wasn't exactly counting. I said, I don't know, but it was more than anyone else. He said, you're hired. And so that kind of led into his mentoring me in the sales world. As Betsy reminded me, he had a great motto, a deal a week, and he meant it. And it wasn't easy to do. In fact, I never did, but he didn't fire me. So different topics. Wine, as you all know, as we look around this wonderful estate, which I'm forever indebted to him, literally indebted. The amount of wine that I bought because of that man is enough to float boats. Life, fatherhood, sometimes in his own eccentric way, as we just heard from poor Reed. I remember that Christmas that he came back and Steve said, yeah, I had a great Christmas vacation. What'd you do? I said, Kelly and I went skiing, the normal kind of stuff. Oh, we had this great time. We were up in International Falls. And I'm thinking, International Falls? January. Jesus Christ, did it hit zero? He goes, oh, no, it didn't get it. It didn't get above 20 below. And I'm thinking, the poor kid, he's out there. And I could just imagine him going to school that Monday. How was your vacation? He's still shivering, Poor guy. But he turned out to be a hell of a man. I couldn't be more proud of Reed than I am, and having seen what he's gone through here in these last, months in supporting his sister and his mother and the whole family. The community and giving back. Steve cared about his fellow man, unlike so many that are really just there to make a buck, but not him. How many of us can say, we saved a town? Well, he and Betsy did twice. It's really amazing. My kids, Kelly and I always joke about this. They call him the most interesting man in the world. So if you've ever seen that beer commercial with Dos Equis, they go, there's Steve. And I said, well, yeah, that guy's not as interesting as Steve, actually. He was a saint. Of course, he could drink the devil under the table, but he was a saint. And he loved so many and so many more that he's affected their life in a way that my father once said to me, the measure of a man when you leave is the esteem of those who knew you. And the esteem for Steve and Betsy is unlike almost anyone I've ever met. So we know he left here in the highest of esteem. And I just hope that, myself, my family, my kids can have some of that measure when their time comes. His large heart was eclipsed only by his sense of humor, as warped as it could be, about travel. And again, we just heard about, poor Reed. And also who goes to both bowls at 75? No one in their right mind goes to one at 75, let alone trying to do both. For a vacation, that's not the type that I would like to go on, but no recollection of Steve would be complete without mentioning his alter ego, Luis. So those of you who are Cornish and Kerry folk, he had this alter ego that could only be seen after probably a full bottle of Patron. And when it came out, oh God help us and everyone at Cornish and Kerry, because the party would not end, as you were saying earlier, until the next day, and usually, in fact, never ended well, ever. Luis was a tequila-enhanced figment of Steve's imagination from Central America. And again, I could go on and on about that individual, but most of those stories aren't fit for this sort of an esteemed crew. So I'd like to say, kind of in closing, a few things. You know, I miss my brother greatly. His smile, I mean, just look at the guy. How can you not love that, you know? And the legacy of philanthropy that he left, you know, few can match. Betsy, Reed, Hayden, you've lost a very bright light in your life, and our universe is darker. Without him, a husband, a father, a friend, as I told Reed some weeks ago, having gone through this myself with my own father, it's not easy. It's one of the most difficult times of your life, but it does get better. You start to remember the smiles more and, you know, the tears less. And heaven knows that Steve gave us all a lifetime of smiles. So I'll be sure to be doing, I hope, I didn't see it at the bar. It's a major omission, by the way. There's no tequila. There's got to be tequila when Steve's around. And I know that he'll keep the canteen kind of open for us all. And one final thought, you know, if somebody asked me, how could you sum up a man in one word? And for me, that was humanitarian, because that son of a gun cared more about everyone else than he did about himself. And not many can do that. So Steve believed in living every day. Carpe diem was his motto. And may we all seize the day as Steve did. To Steve.
My name is Dick Watts. My bromance with Steve goes back 35 years to when our daughters were in kindergarten together at Little Ormondale School in Portola Valley. And Betsy, Hayden, Reed, it's an honor to be asked to share some thoughts about those 35 years with a few lines here. No words can express how I feel, it's clear. The best I can do is this poem. It's tragic to think Steve's no longer here, but my God, was I lucky to know him. All through his life, Steve never conformed. In Peace Corps, he served in Honduras. Did you know that he also performed on the opera stage in the chorus? Well, actually, they gave him non-singing roles, like standing there holding a spear. But he did it so well, his style was so droll, the audience gave him a cheer, especially from the friends and family section, I think. At school, Steve protested the Vietnam War, marching on San Jose streets. He noticed a co-ed he couldn't ignore, and his heart skipped several beats. Her name was Betsy. She was not impressed with his hand-painted placards and banners. She said he should clean up his mess, get to class, and show better manners. But in spite of this tension, love filled the air. From that day, their lives interweaved. Together, they formed an inseparable pair, Steve and Betsy, Betsy and Steve. When children arrived, Steve worked hard to feed them, to nurture their bodies and minds. He was thinking ahead to the time that he'd need them to help out with tending the vines. Each child got to travel with Steve on their own, trips full of action and spice. The first one, with Reed, for sure set the tone. Minnesota in winter on ice. Reed also went rafting, which was more fun, he says. The rapids were raging and narrow. Hayden said, I'll take the Sea of Cortez and climbing up Kilimanjaro. But trek the Antarctic? The kids said, no thanks. The South Pole, it's as cold as an icicle. And they didn't exactly leap at the chance to cross the US on a bicycle. But wherever he traveled, with groups or alone, Steve added new friends to his list. His generous spirit, his warm, friendly tone, was something that few could resist. And even when Steve wasn't traveling far, his home life was equally stellar, with his taste in fine food, a fully stocked bar, and of course, a fantastic wine cellar. Father adventurer, grower of vines, philanthropist, husband, and friend. Steve did them all well, and a lot more besides. He ran at full speed till the end. If Steve were here with us, you know he'd insist we not shed a tear, so let's show him. Raise our glasses and say, he'll be surely missed, but by God, we were lucky to know him.
I think that's the perfect segue to yet another artistic expression of gratitude. We have a dear friend that will be presenting his remarks regarding Steve, Dmitry Sitkovetsky, who is an artist, a good friend of my dad and mom, who performs throughout the world, but whom they met here in the Napa Valley as part of many of the festivals that come through the valley. And Dmitry and my parents developed a very close relationship, and he felt very strongly about being able to present his own remarks today as well, and they're going to be aired remotely here. Is that correct? Great.
Steve and I met only 14 years ago, but it seems like I've known him and Betsy all my life. Steve had an extraordinary capacity for friendship. That what made him stand out from most people that I've ever met. First, I came to their beautiful house after a concert with their, I think I was Russian National Orchestra in 2007 during the Napa Tuscan Sun Festival, which was in the summer of 2007. And that was a memorable evening when Gordon Getty tried to sing us all under the table. And we had a wonderful evening, and immediately Steve and Betsy invited me to come back the following year and stay in their beautiful house, which I did. And that turned out to be quite a memorable visit, because I managed not only to stay there and bring my family there, Susan and Julia, but I also managed to have an incredible fall in the golf cart coming down, which now is known as Dima Memorial Drive, or what could have become a Memorial Drive. It didn't, because I was saved by I suppose, my guardian angels, but not only that, I was taken to the hospital for about 5 hours, and they put me in all kinds of bandages and support for my shoulder. I lost the ligament right there on my left shoulder. It's still sticking out ever since, but I hardly needed it since then. And also I damaged my right foot quite seriously, as it turned out later. But being an old soldier of music, I went ahead and did 2 concerts, one in Castello Amoroso and one in the Lincoln Theater. And both Betsy and Steve cared with extraordinary love and affection, and I suppose they felt really bad that it happened in their house, but it was just completely my fault. I was too involved showing off the Moulds family winery to my daughter, who just arrived that afternoon. So after that, we had fantastic visits because they both Betsy and Steve came to see me in San Bernardino, where I played just a few months after that, one of my first concerts already with skin graft and the whole thing. But I recovered quickly, and then Steve was determined for me to overcome the fear of that quite a slope down. So I braved myself together with him on the bikes. We made it down there and all the way to Yountville to join up with his extraordinary team of bikers, which crossed United States several times, with which I believe is a superhuman effort. But I was good enough from their house to Yountville without an accident the following summer. So we had since many wonderful occasions. I remember a memorable New Year's concert with San Francisco Symphony, which was a masked ball, a wonderful celebration. I remember also concert at the Opus One during another Tuscan Sun Festival, but also we started a series of house concerts, which I enjoyed enormously because it gave me an opportunity to introduce my friends in California, in Mill Valley, like Peter Coyote, who came to do a program with me, first with the orchestra, and then we did a house concert, and he came to the very last time I did that, of course, with Luigi and Grazie, with Pam and Tony Strickland-Freund, and also Bernadine Blacha. That was in September 19th. And of course, not only did I bring my friends to the house for the evening, I also brought them to stay in that beautiful guest house. And of course, the hospitality of the Moulds is legendary. And I've advertised that all over the world wherever I went, and that was my favorite guest house and still is. And the spirit of Steve will live in all of us for a very, very long time. I will never forget our absolutely fantastic walks in that path that he built, 45-minute walking path around the winery and the house, and our walks just with the two of us, and Darby, of course, was always the companion, and we would talk about everything, and Steve was incredibly curious about everything that he didn't happen to know, even though he knew so much. And it was a wonderful lesson in the great humanity, generosity, and fabulous, fabulous friendship. So this is, of course, I wish I could be with all of you there, but I am there in spirit. I'm speaking now from my home in London. I'm also sending a little musical a tribute to Steve, a love letter in music, and hopefully you all having a wonderful time, and love and hugs and kisses to Betsy. And my next time in California, I will certainly come up and give a wonderful musical tribute also to Steve. He's always in my heart. Much love, and we'll be with you before too long.
We will be wrapping this up at 5:30 with the final installment of our program. Thank you so much. Please help yourself to some wine, refresh, and we'll talk to you out there.